So Ninja News Japan is here. We have not disappeared. We have not disappeared because we have not been crushed by an earthquake. We haven't been crushed by an earthquake because the prediction by the mangaka that on the 5th, I forget. That's how unimportant it is. On the 4th or 5th, that there was going to be a massive earthquake. So if you remember in the last episode, we talked about there was a manga, and in her manga, this woman had dreams and she would just draw her dreams. And she predicted the Fukushima disaster. She predicted the earthquake and it would be a big, big disaster. Then she predicted that this year on the 5th, there was going to be another one. And it was going to be at 4 o'clock in the morning and it was going to make Fukushima look like nothing. Well, guess what happened? Nothing. So this is maybe one of the problems is when people make predictions and those predictions are coincidentally accurate, other people see that as something they should believe. People from Hong Kong, specifically in Taiwan, were canceling their flights to Japan because of this prediction that was made in a manga that this weekend on the 5th, there was going to be a massive earthquake and destroy Japan. Like the way it made it sound was like Fukushima was just like the warm up. This was going to be the big event. And then nothing happened. But people don't remember the prediction where it doesn't actually come true. They just move on and they look for the coincidences and the prediction where it actually happens. So what you should do is not believe any predictions, or I should just make a new job where I start making predictions. And eventually, if you make enough volume, you're going to get one or two that are accurate. And then people will think you're prescient and then you can actually tell the future and stuff. That's really dumb. Don't believe any of that. That being said, don't believe in stuff. I don't believe in like tarot cards or readings. I don't believe in astrology or any of that stuff. It's very hard to say that like everyone born at the same time has the same personality traits, because I've met people born within the same time frame who did not have the same personality traits as I do. But one of my students actually said that she has a friend who can read auras, and I'm really interested. So I said, "Can you take my picture and then have my aura read?" And then I tried to make sure I had a completely flat face, no emotion, no expression at all, so that I could get a completely neutral reading of my aura. I'm very excited to see what my aura actually ends up being. I don't know how long this will take. This is certainly not going to be a priority in my students' life. They may just forget. They might look in like, I have a really weird picture of my teacher on my phone, of him just staring blankly at the camera. But should that occur, I'm very excited to find out what my aura is. I did for a while. The problem was I actually watched one on TikTok. It had a tarot reading where they're like, oh, if you came across this video, it was the universe reaching out and it has a message for you, and they'd read your tarot. And I found that interesting, completely inaccurate. So I don't know if I'll actually get the results. Should I get the results, I will share them on Ninja News Japan now that I've actually said this. And then if you've listened to Ninja News Japan for the last 350 episodes or however many we've done, you can then say, like, I've gotten this sense of what Chunk McBeefchest is as a person, who he is. And then is the aura reading accurate in my opinion or feeling? Or maybe it like brings out some dark inner secret that, you don't actually know about. That would be interesting in itself as well. It is the beginning of a political season in Japan. And Japan, they do their politics there's good points and bad points. The good points is it's a very short set period. It's like a couple weeks. You can do sort of your speeches. You can put up your posters. You can do it during this period and not before and not after. And otherwise it's sort of illegal. That is good, keeping it limited. So in America, when it's like a 2-3 year long process leading up, it means like politicians who are supposed to be in doing their jobs politically are actually like campaigning and stuff half the time. That means they're not doing their job. So Japan's kept it down to a couple weeks, a month, something like that. But the bad side is it means they give speeches. Those speeches tend to be standing on top of a van, with loudspeakers, just completely annoying everyone around them. Like I've actually been in the office where I work. The way the political speeches work in Japan, they get on top of a van, they get loudspeakers, and they just boom those as loud as they can, because it almost seems like there's no noise laws in Japan. Because I've been in my office and like 3 blocks away, you can hear the speech happening on the corner with some low-level politician. Also, they drive around and they don't say speeches. They have these vans they drive around and they just say the politician's name over and over again. And they go like, Toshio Suzuki, Toshio Suzuki, Toshio Suzuki. They just do that over and over and over again. And again, with these incredibly booming things. Like, this is the closest I've wanted to come to getting a gun to shoot something, because I would love to shoot those speakers. I guess the idea is that if they can get a name into your head when I go to vote and I don't like have a particularly strong political stance, I'll just vote for the name I remember the most. I'm hoping that's not how politics works, but it does seem to be, since a lot of the parties are very similar, it does seem to be like there's very small differences between the groups. But since we have speech time, the other good point for Ninja News Japan as a podcast means we have comments by politicians trying to get attention. And I don't have to finish most of these. I could just start them and that would be enough. And weirdly, all the controversial comments seem to be coming from the right side of the political spectrum. But we have the Democratic Party for the People. I find the names of the parties to be kind of dystopian. It's almost like if I was going to write a dystopian future story and I needed political party names, I would use the names sort of like the ones they have in Japan. The Democratic Party for the People leader was asked why his party receives little support from women. I don't think I need to go much further for you to actually like fill in the blanks for what a Japanese traditional conservative right-wing person is going to say. But we might as well say it, because we might as well get it out there. I think our policy is good, not only for men, but also women. But I think it's very difficult to understand for them. So the dude is saying, why don't women support your party? And he goes, well, because they're kind of dumb. And then he wonders why this is a problem. So of course, the next day he had to come up with an apology saying he misspoke. I regret that I used a poor expression. I had no intention of being misogynistic. Well, it's an interesting thing because I don't think misogynists ever intend to be misogynistic. I think that's just where they go. He did say, I'm not good at English. So he does have a little out. These comments specifically were made in English. And he's saying he's not good at English, so he's actually made a mistake. But I'm going to go ahead and say, if you're not good at English, you should not be making political statements with any sort of subtlety. But let's move on to some other political parties. We have the leader of the Sanseito Party. And he decided to one-up our previous friend from the People's Democratic Party. He was saying that only young women can have children. When I say it, some people call it discrimination, but it's just biological fact. This is a very Japan first party. They are against immigration, and they are very worried about the decline in population in Japan. Now, it was interesting. They had a YouTube channel going, and as he started making these comments, the YouTube channel just went to a colored bar. So it's like they had an issue with their feed. But then they claim it was because of the extreme heat, because they were actually filming this outside and it's very hot in Japan. I actually just said, I'm very hot trying to start the podcast today. Of course, they came to follow up. I think this might have been just to court some controversy to get some attention. That's actually what I feel happened there. So he started making controversial comments. They cut it off, made it seem like maybe someone else cut them off. But then, of course, someone came up, a reporter came, and actually challenged him a little bit. And he said, with modern medicine and care, women into their 40s can quite easily still have babies. For women in their 60s and 70s, it remains extremely difficult, which I would say is factually correct. There is another issue. I don't know. I don't want to speak for women in their 60s and 70s, but certainly as someone in their 50s, I do not want to start having children now. If I had a child now, I would be in my 70s when that child turned 20, which means, throughout my 50s and 60s, I'd be doing the young, energetic time for children and the teen times when it's maybe difficult. If I was in my 60s and 70s, that's not when I would want to start having kids. So again, I don't want to speak for other people, but I think a lot of people at the same age might be sharing a similar opinion.
Now pop that baby out, make that happen.
Dude, it's the exhaustion. I'm not even doing English good today. I'm like that guy in the previous story. It's the exhaustion of having newborns and babies and little kids and the energy that goes with it. I don't think people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s want that anymore. I want to just relax. I'm really glad my kids are of age where they're leaving the house now. The interesting part is, even though he's doing this in a horrible way, he actually had some points I agree with. And the points, and this is again, trying to differentiate, controversy, opinion reality, fact, things like that. He was saying we need to make a society where young women are comfortable having babies. And I think that's true. I just would take out the young part. I think if you want to have babies, we need to make a society where you are comfortable and feel supported having babies. I agree with that aspect of his statement. I just don't agree with what or how he was saying any of the other stuff. Let's move on. NHK Party. NHK Party has been a fan favorite on Ninja News Japan because they created a party. It's kind of a 50% joke party, 50% serious party. So they're always doing stuff. The leader of the party last year was attacked with a machete, not by a foreigner, but by a Japanese citizen. He said, he put on a MAGA hat. So that's already giving you a sense of where he is in the world. And he started his speech with, "I'm afraid of foreigners." There's a problem now. I realize if I'm doing quotes and someone clips the bit with the quote and no context, I could actually get in trouble. But I'm afraid of foreigners. You might not feel as much fear with white people. So that was like his intro to his speech. You know it was going to get better after that. It's scary when groups of black people or people with Islamic background gather and frolic in front of the station. I do have to admit, I like the word frolic. I mean, I got to admit, people frolicking sounds like a good time. He says they don't understand Japanese, or you don't know if they understand Japanese, so it's scary to have those kind of people hanging around the station. This is a man who has promoted genocide as a solution to overpopulation, but he's also part of a non-serious party, so it's really hard to take any of his statements seriously. I think, again, he just courts controversy by just saying whatever he thinks he can say and get away with, just saying stuff to see what sticks. This is the same group that last year was like, let's put up porn posters instead of our regular posters to try to get more attention. And they sold their sort of advertising space to people who just wanted to put up pictures of their dogs and stuff. And that actually created a new law where you're not allowed to do that. So that actually might be the strategy. Let's just see how far we can push the limits and then see what happens after. One more speech we have to look at, and that is the Conservative Party of Japan, talking again about foreign people. There is a big concern. And the big concern is that the Japanese population is in decline, and we need to fix that problem. But the one thing we don't want is foreigners coming in and actually intermixing with Japanese people and Japanese culture and having babies and stuff like that. They don't want me because I came to Japan and I produced 2 offspring. So if you take myself and my wife out of the equation, we've actually produced 1 child to replace my wife and 1 child extra because I don't count because I'm a foreigner. But we have increased the population of Japan. And they're like, that's not the solution because those kids, they're not pure Japanese. They don't understand Japanese culture. This is the irony, is that these kids who are born and raised in Japan are as Japanese as kids get. But that's not the point of what we're talking about. The Conservative Party of Japan, really bland title compared to all the other ones, but whatever. Foreign people disrespect Japanese culture, ignore the rules, assault Japanese people, and steal. In northern Kanto, there are towns that are no-go zones. I now absolutely want to find one of these no-go zones and go to them because as a foreigner, I might be able to go there and go to the no-go zone. But these statements under Japanese law, because they are so clear, actually can be construed as hate speech. So the leader of the Conservative Party may have committed hate speech in his speech, which may actually end up getting him in real trouble down the line. It's good to learn about scams. It's good to learn about scams because to know that what scams are out there and how the scams work and how they kind of get you. So there is it's called the adult site cancellation fee scam. And I hadn't actually heard about this one. So what happens is a man saw a thumbnail on his smartphone and he pushed the button, and that was probably his first mistake. And you can go to trusted sites if that's what you're into. I'm not actually like kink shaming or judging anyone for their sexuality or their viewing habits. If you want to look at that and it's all legal and above board, I got 0 problems with it. You do you. But got to be careful. The adult site cancellation fee scam means you've pressed a pop-up. Oh, you've pressed a thumbnail, and then there's a pop-up, and the pop-up says registration completed. Now, in that, there is also another sub button that says accidental registration. And then you click that button, you're provided with a number. You call that number and you say, I have accidentally registered at your site. To cancel your registration, you have to temporarily register, and then you can sort of unregister your registration. And this costs 450,000 yen. Now, I would take a pause right there because If I pushed a button on my phone, there is, I guess, a suspicion that maybe they got my credit card number, but there's no way they're going to get a 450,000 yen charge through. And then there's a promise of a full refund after the processing. So basically you give them 450,000 yen. They then cancel your membership that you just created, and then you get your 450,000 yen back. If it's 450,000 yen, that must be the best porn in the world. So I actually, if I was getting told that this is a 450,000 yen thing that I've just registered for and I haven't actually paid anything, and I could call my credit card company and actually block that payment, I might want to take a look around and see if there is any actual porn worth 450,000 yen in that website, which I'm betting there isn't. But what of course happens then? The victim goes through the 450,000 process, sends them e-money. So again, they didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for credit card. They were like, go to the convenience store, get Apple Pay cards or some other kind of Amazon Pay cards, 450,000 yen worth, and then read us the numbers over the phone. So if anything, if they're not doing it through credit cards, I think that's it, because they don't have your information. If they need you to go buy a card and then send you the information on that card, they don't have your information. So that should be the first piece of information we send out into the world right there. If a scammer, you don't know they're a scammer, you think they're legitimate, but if they're asking you to send them money via cards, it means they don't have your information, which means they can't get any money from you. There's also the question of like, if an older person or this person comes in and goes to buy 450,000 yen worth of cards from a convenience store, the staff should be like, whoa, dude, you're getting scammed. Now, there's been a couple of really sort of feel-good stories of convenience store workers or banker workers and stuff, and they've actually stopped scams this way. Yes, unfortunately, a lot of older people fall for these, but that means if an older person, again, we can't make people do this, but if an older person came to a convenience store and said, hey, I would like 450,000 yen in Apple Pay cards, you might want to stop and go, hey, I know it's none of my business, but what for? Because I think you really need to rethink who you're sending this money to. Now, the reason the porn scam works more than anything else is because the porn scam comes with the shame of anyone finding out that you look at porn. I once got one of those emails when it was a new thing. I got one of those emails that said, hey, we accessed your webcam while you were jerking off to porn. We have the video. If you don't send us Bitcoin, we're going to release the video. I actually told it to my wife saying like, look at how bad this is. And she goes, yeah, because if they actually got a video of you jerking off to porn, you would have no problem with it being disseminated on the internet. Like there's no way I'd pay for that. I actually might like tell my friends, hey, I got caught in this porn. Everyone check it out. So she actually was like, yeah, they've tried to scam the wrong person with the wrong thing, because you're just like, yeah, go ahead, man. I'm down. I would just post the link on the internet. It would be in my link tree the next day. I have thought about putting Ninja News Japan on OnlyFans because I stream it, right? And I can dual stream. I stream on Twitch and Kick. I have actually been thinking like maybe I should like try stream Twitch, Kick, and OnlyFans, which would just be funny. Not because I think I would actually get footing there. I don't get footing anywhere, but it would be funny just to have that happen. Maybe someone watches on OnlyFans. It'd be fun to have an OnlyFans account. I think that's actually more than anything. Maybe I should drop, because I don't want to overwhelm my internet. That's actually the thing that I would be most concerned about. So I should stick with Twitch, because I have a core group of friends that are actually on Twitch that I actually do enjoy talking to. Not Carson Uwu. I'm not really down with that guy. But starting an OnlyFans and have people come in from OnlyFans would be really funny. But we're not going to do that right now. It is something that's popped into my head more than once. So you know that actually seed has been implanted. They called back the next day saying they haven't received the refund. The next day, the scammer demanded 400,000 yen, saying they had been registered at a different site. So they actually had to make an account on that site so then they could process the refund and then get them the actual refund. This is when the guy was like, look, I'm clearly being scammed at this point. Maybe the first one was legitimate, but then just asking again and not giving me my money back before. I'm being scammed, goes to the police. The problem is they can't catch him because he sent the codes from the cards. There's no way they can actually trace that. So in this case, the person actually got away. I don't want to embarrass the person who actually like was the victim of this kind of crime, a victim of scams. But I think it is really important for scams to be like disseminated information wise, so everyone can recognize when a scam is occurring. Another way to recognize a scam is when you're talking to an incredibly famous person and then they ask you for money, because it's weird if they're that famous and have that much more money than you. A man and a father posed as Shohei Ohtani to try to scam an 80-year-old woman out of money. Shohei Ohtani has more money than anyone else in the world. That's not true. It's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Shohei Ohtani is probably one of the highest paid baseball players in the world. So him asking you for any kind of money is problematic. There's no way he's going to be asking you for money. He doesn't need money. He doesn't need your help. So the way they did this, they found her on Facebook and then they connected to her via Facebook and then got her to move over to Line. Line is the chat system on your phone. They talked to her over several months. So they were putting the work in. I mean, most scammers are very lazy and they bail really quick if it doesn't work. But someone who's willing to put in the work, I mean, you got to have a little respect for the dedication to the scam. They said, as Shohei Ohtani, I'm the best in the world, so my insurance premiums are really high. I've paid tens of millions of yen, but it's not enough. I want you to pay me 1 million yen in premiums. Why would Shohei Ohtani ask an 80-year-old woman for 1 million yen to cover his premiums? It just doesn't make sense. Now, this older woman, don't know her situation. She might just be enjoying the attention. She might actually believe it. She might be in some stages of dementia. There's no way we know the actual situation. So I have a lot more sympathy for the victim in this place because it might have just been the connection, the attention that she was just desperate for, which is how you get a lot of these older people. She called him. So online has a telephone function so you can actually call people. She tried to call him multiple times. They would avoid it by saying, the game is about to start, so I can't answer the phone right now because, of course, these were not Japanese people. So maybe their Japanese wasn't going to be as perfect as Shohei Ohtani. So if they actually got on the phone and she heard their voice, this scam would be up because it'd be like, hey, you're clearly not a Japanese person. Maybe they speak Japanese really, really well, but they're going to have an accent or something. And they were very scared to actually get on the phone. This got so far that they said, we're going to send one of my managers to your house to pick up the 1 million yen. And then that's how they got caught. Because when the guy showed up, a relative was around the area and saw something going on and went to check. And then they called the police and the police were able to pick up this person. Turns out to be a guy and his son. It was the son doing the scam, but the father supported him because they had to trade off the phone, I guess, every now and then. The father and the mother are the owner of a Nepalese curry shop that since COVID had sort of decimated the business and they were in great financial straits. This is the big problem for them as a family. We don't know if the mom was involved, but the father and son obviously came with the scam to try to supplement their income and have been arrested. A Lamborghini. It's already like Lamborghini, man. If you have enough money to buy a Lamborghini, don't get in trouble because of your stupid car. I tried to get in and out of a Lamborghini. I'm quite tall, so getting into a Lamborghini was really difficult. I did not enjoy the experience. And then getting out, I look really stupid. I'm never going to be able to just like coolly step out of a super car because they're so low to the ground. Especially my knees are not getting better. A Lamborghini was modified to shoot flames out of the tailpipes. I mean, if you're the kind of person who goes to buy a Lamborghini, I bet you think flame shooting out of your tail is really important. So they did that. They also did the undercarriage lights, which of course I didn't actually realize those are actually illegal in Japan. Shooting flames out of your car is an illegal modification in Japan. Japan's very strict about it, like tinted windows and stuff. They're very strict about that kind of stuff. But then the undercarriage light kit is also illegal in Japan. 6 people ended up getting arrested for this, which is crazy how many people got arrested for the modifications. But it's because this car was brought to an inspection site. And so passing the inspection means there was fraud committed on the manager of the inspection site shop. There's the guy who put in the illegal mods and probably his crew. And then there's the owner of the car. So you're looking at like 4 people just straight up there. There's the owner of the car, the modification guy, the guy who does the mod, and I assume one or two of his employees. And then there's the guy who owns the shop that does the inspections. And he just was like writing stuff off. And this is all fraud for bypassing the regulations on cars in Japan. If you have enough money, they're probably able to pay the fines, but I'm wondering if they'll pay the fines for everyone else or if you actually lose your licenses. This being Japan, I bet they end up losing their licenses and their stores. So there's a really famous like night view place on top of a mountain. So if you're the city, you want to encourage people to go there. You know, this brings tourists to the place. They can come and go up and look at the lights of the city on the top of this mountain. It's very romantic, but you also want to make it kind of fun. Maybe have something for the kids. What you do is you create a 30-meter slide. 30 meters, it's like 60 feet. I'm just going to go with the quick double, but that's not correct. Anyways, a 30-meter slide sounds super fun. Turns out they had to close it because 4 people broke bones on it. So not very romantic, not really fun. It turns out one employee used it before it even opened. So if you have an employee who's like, hey, I'm going to go test out the new slide. Maybe they weren't supposed to do that yet. Slide down and they break a bone. That might have been an indicator right there. Maybe we shouldn't be opening this slide that's breaking people's bones and bodies. 98.5 feet. Do you want to make that into slang terms? Is that a ton of feet? So there should have been already a question. Before we've even opened this up, a couple of our crew tried it and one of them broke a bone. Then it turns out a 2-year-old being held by his sister, they went down the slide together. The 2-year-old broke his bone. A 70-year-old man went down the slide and he broke a bone. This came to light when a tourist in their 30s went down the slide and broke their shin. So I don't know if this was too steep or it went too fast or like you stopped too suddenly. They don't actually say, but 4 people got done by this slide and they had to close it down. It was getting everybody because it hit all the demographics. It hit employee, which I don't know what that person was. It hit a female tourist in her 30s. It hit an old man in his 70s, and it hit a little kid in the 2s, hadn't even hit broken double digits yet, but they had already broken a bone. October 2023, a live streamer got drunk and fell asleep in the street and then was sleeping, but the stream was still going. And then some thieves came along and stole his smartphone with the stream still going. Then they went and they reported back to their boss that they had stolen this phone and been really successful in stealing from this guy who was sleeping on the street, which counts as a confession because it was captured on stream. Now, the police didn't have who these guys were. Maybe they didn't like turn the camera to their own face or anything, but they do have, they are thieves. They know who sort of they were talking to. They had a lot of information. They were able to connect this to a crime, the crime that was broken this year. So this is 1.5 years later. You're actually getting this information was being held onto so that they could then connect a couple of different crimes. Just recently, the head of a crime syndicate was arrested because he was leading a group that targets passed out people. And this is, okay, so my view is Yakuza used to be very romantic. I grew up in the 80s watching movies, and the Yakuza were like a really consistent set of bad guys. And they were all super powerful, doing like really big, scary crimes and lots of drug running and people trafficking and stuff like that. And so like stealing smartphones off drunk people who've fallen asleep in the street really is sort of like overdoing Ninja News Japan. My opinion of the Yakuza has diminished significantly. But this is the kind of thing that makes me go like, should you even really be calling yourself Yakuza anymore? So what they would do is they'd find passed out people. They would take their wallet and their smartphone. And if they could, they would use the wallet. Oh, sorry, I got to take a break and watch Dave settle in. I like him settling in under his own portrait. Oh, go the other way. Come on, buddy. Oh, there you go. Settled. All right. What they would do is they would take the cards and try to use the cards and then buy luxury items. And they were maybe buying items from their own pawn shops just to get money moving around. Then they would try to open other cards based off those cards. So trying to like open new credit cards so they could use those as quickly as possible. It was interesting because we got a bit of a Japanese slang. So the people who were falling asleep in the street were referred to as maguro. Maguro is tuna fish, and it's sort of like you use for sushi. So maguro is a kind of sushi, but these then referred to themselves as fishermen. So they were maguro fishermen going out, finding the tuna and stealing from them. I found that really interesting. It's a cultural point that these guys use that terminology. The police, when they were able to connect these guys to the live stream from a couple of years ago, then had enough evidence to be able to go and search their houses. They found items stolen from 456 people, which means they were keeping the stuff. So, I mean, this is one of those things where once you've used it, you got to get rid of it. Again, Ninja News Japan, quite famous for giving advice to criminals. So if you are a thief and you're stealing things, if you are a maguro fisherman and you've been successful, don't keep the stuff. Like, you got to get rid of it. So if you steal cell phones, get everything you can off the cell phone and then get rid of the cell phone. If you got the credit card, use the credit card. But once you can't use it anymore, get rid of it. They seem to have been keeping these like trophies, which is ridiculous. Do not keep stuff from your crime. But then again, there's a reason I'm not a criminal. It's because I would have thought of something like that. This should be maybe the warning. The last story is always the weirdest, grossest sexual one. So if you're not into that, stop now. But of course, if you've come to the end, you've probably come for this. There was this girl live streaming. They don't say on what. So I'm like Instagram or TikTok or something. Live streaming on, they said social media. Live streaming in Japan usually is Instagram or Twitter. I guess I should start saying X. Or maybe one of the Japanese sites. I have no idea. They just said streaming on social media. A spiritual medium sent a message to the woman he was watching streaming on social media and said in the comments. So I never get the comments like this. You are possessed by the living spirit of a man and are in a dangerous situation. It is surprising that you are still alive. You cannot be exorcised in an ordinary temple or shrine. And then, of course, made an offer that I will exorcise you. They then made arrangements for the man, the spiritual medium, to meet at her apartment to perform an exorcism. So let's just be clear. If you're on social media, if you're streaming and people start making offers and whatnot, don't let them come to your house. Don't let them come to your apartment. If you're going to do an exorcism, do it somewhere else. Somewhere public. I mean, let's face it, since you're already into streaming, you might as well stream the exorcism. That's 100% what I would do. If someone said to me, hey, Chunk McBeef Chest, you're possessed by a spirit, you need to be exorcised, I'd be like, great, let's meet somewhere and let me stream the exorcism so we can actually happen. What I want to do is actually go to one of those McDojo martial arts things where they do the no touch kung fu and actually take the guy on. I would 100% want to do that.
Nah, the camera will interfere.
Yeah, but you don't tell them. This is the schemy part of me. This is where I am able to give advice to criminals, is because I do have the criminal mind. I just know the crime is not worth it most of the time because you just can't make enough money. So it's not worth actually doing the crime. But I do have that element, and that element put together, I could be the scam buster. I wish I had more time and I had enough money to actually do stuff like this, because I would love to go get someone to try to exorcise me, and I would, set it up. And yeah, the camera will confuse. You hide the camera. So she's already made a ton of mistakes in the social media landscape because you don't have strangers from the internet come to your house for any reason. So he started out reading sutras. Now, if you're not spent any time in Japan, not familiar with Japanese culture, sutras are when the priests in the temple go, now they're saying stuff. I do not have the Japanese skill to hear what they're saying, but it is something that you do. I remember when I had a child and we took them to the temple and we had them blessed, and they read some sutras, and then in the sutras you could hear your kid's name. So the only bit I could pick out is when they said my son's name, which was really interesting. And they waved some like branches over their head and stuff. It was a bit weird because they blessed my child and then went over and blessed a minivan, which I felt sort of diminished the value of the blessing on my child. So it's one of those things like, if you're going to bless children, get a new branch to bless the car. I mean, just cause. I don't know why it took it down a notch for me. And then I leaned over and asked my wife, like, can you get anything blessed? And she was like, yeah, I mean, it's just a blessing. So it doesn't really matter what it is. And I was like, so can I bring in my PlayStation and get it blessed? She's like, you pay them the money, they will bless it. And I was like, I could have the priest come over and go, headshots, someone no Chunk McBeef Chest. Get back to the story. He was reading sutras and then started sexually assaulting the woman, saying that I can't exorcise you. I can't exorcise the spirit unless I use my body. So he was hoping she was so locked into this, she would actually let him do whatever he wanted to do to her body. She was not pleased by this. Apparently he tried like 3 or 4 times and she rebuffed him multiple times and then called the police. When he was arrested, he said, I left salt in the house and read sutras, but I never engaged in sexual acts. Now, here's the semantic aspect of this. I bet he could mentally justify it by saying, those were not sexual acts. It was part of the exorcism. It was a religious act. And that's the kind of semantics that these guys sort of like use to justify all their behavior, because the police are saying, did you commit sexual assault? He could say, no, I committed a religious act. And let's just be clear. If anyone wants to exorcise a spirit from me, we can meet in the park, but I'm going to video it. And you can absolutely try. You can absolutely try to sexually assault me. I'm down. That's not how I want to end this episode. What am I going to say? I'm going to cut that. If you want to exorcise a spirit from me, I'm ready.